Hello and welcome to Audiovisual Cultures, the podcast that explores different areas of the arts and cultural production. I'm Paula Blair, and in this edition, Andrew, Shail and I discuss Saved, the 2014 pick set in a Christian high school. Huge thanks to members at patreon.com/avcultures for all your support. It is especially appreciated during lockdown, and at the time of recording, it's my only income at the moment. If anyone else listening to this would like to contribute in some way, you can also donate to paypal.me/PEA Blair or share the podcast with others you think would enjoy it. Listen out for further details at the end. Just so you're aware, we deal with some ableist and homophobic terms that crop up in the film, and while we respect individuals, we reserve the right to be critical of religious doctrine. Towards the end, there is also mention of suicide and domestic abuse. I do hope you find this discussion useful. What tonight? Do you want to tell everybody what we did?
Because I've watched a religious film or two on Netflix, Netflix now just picks out religious content and goes, clearly you must want to watch this. This counts overtly as anti-religious content, or at least mildly critical of religion content, so we watched Saved! Styled in the opening credits as Saved! In the form of a cross. 2004, directed by Dannelly, starring a very teen pick cast.
Yeah.
This is the year of the Passion of the Christ.
Grown-up Macaulay Culkin.
Very handsome Macaulay Culkin.
Normally I balk when Shail suggests watching a religious type film. I just thought, I don't know, can I? I don't like going into this territory. But we read a little bit about it, had a look on Netflix before watching, and I thought, oh, Macaulay Culkin, Mandy Moore, yeah, okay, let's give it a try. 2004, alright, yeah, let's do it. And I'm really glad we watched it, and I'm wondering if it's going to be one of those dark horse type ones. I think this is the message in the films. This is something to tease out a little bit, is that it's a bit, I think it was, what was the name of the pastor? I've forgotten his name already.
Okay, cast list.
He's like a down with the kids type pastor, isn't
He's called
he?
Skip Wheeler, but of
Skip
course
Wheeler,
he's
okay.
Pastor Skip.
Pastor Skip. So Pastor Skip says at one point, about Christian rock. Well, somebody said to me there's not much difference these days between ordinary rock and Christian rock, and he said, well, that's the point, because you have to get them in, you have to get them enjoying things, and then hit them with the message, and I feel like that's what that film in general is trying to do. We can talk that out and see if you agree.
Yeah, well, on the overt level, that is how Christian culture in the US works. It just takes a thing which is popular at the time, copies it, slaps on a layer of Jesus. Year before last, when I was teaching my religion and recent US film module, we watched Leap of Faith, which was a 1992 film starring Steve Martin, directed by Richard Pearce. It seems on the outside to be highly critical of religion because Steve Martin is a faith healer who is overtly a scammer. And he's got a whole team of people who are really expert scammers. One of the advisors on the film was a magician. Magicians are famous debunkers of faith healers. There's this tradition, Darren Brown does it. There's tradition amongst magicians of debunking people who actually claim to have supernatural powers. So the film presents as quite a scathing indictment of a particular flavour of Christianity. Yet when we got to the end of it, my students and I were of course having this discussion in the seminar, and just very openly, here's an open question for a discussion, said, what stance do you reckon this film takes on religion? And one of my students, rather than gently crawling from, on the outside, it's critical, but I think perhaps there's elements in there of, none of that, she just went, that's the most endorsing of religion film I've ever seen. And the others went, yeah, of course it is. And I said, well, why? And together they went, well, it's because it looks like it's critical. So from that position of skepticism, it then delivers a message in about the last 10 minutes where it essentially redeems some choice bits of the religion in question as a result of a structure that essentially goes, these people don't count as true Christians, but if we just sweep all that aside, we'll find that all of the nuggets at the centre of Christianity, those are all both fine and true. saved from 12 years later, the more I think about it now, I'm thinking it does exactly that structure of presenting it overtly as highly critical. It's critical of speaking in tongues. It's critical of altar calls. It's critical of religious hypocrisy. It's overtly critical of gay conversion therapy. You know, it's piling it all on. It has a main character who's the antagonist, who's the most Jesus-y person, and she's immoral in umpteen different ways. So yeah, it's overtly critical in all these ways. But in the last 10 or so minutes, has the sympathetic characters expressing these vague, well, I'm sure Jesus is working in our lives anyway moment. There's a little bit of voiceover narration by the main character at the end where she says, Mary, where she says, life's so beautiful and complicated, it couldn't possibly be just a function of the brute matter and energy working in the universe. There must be something godly within us. And also the music at that point was quite Jesus-y. It seems to go, well, yeah, we're not actually going to hit you with a punchline which is a criticism of Christianity. In fact, all of our criticisms have just been aimed at the people who, as far as the film's logic are concerned, don't count as true Christians. There was a slightly earlier bit in the lead up to the climactic scene when Mary, the main protagonist, starts to have a bit of a reconciliation with people who she's estranged from, and some Christian rock is playing in the background, and there's this vague sentiment of God's working in your life. And also, it just occurred to me, the gay conversion therapy in the film, the gay character is sent to a place called Mercy House, which is supposed to be a place that applies gay conversion therapy. The gay conversion therapy, it doesn't actually happen.
No, you don't see any of it, and it puts him in a room with another person with this same affliction.
And they become
common as him. Yeah.
And they become lovers.
Because there's only 2 gay people in the whole world, so obviously they're going to fall in love.
Yes. For a film to say, hey, gay conversion therapy doesn't work, on the surface that is critical of a particular flavour of Christianity that claims on both sides of the Atlantic that you can pray the gay away. But what goes on at this place isn't even gay conversion therapy. So it seems that what it's doing at a deeper level is it's going, oh, all this worrying about people trying to convert gay people, no one's doing that. There's no social harm being brought about by this, the existence of this sacred text and the existence of beliefs in homosexuality being wrong. The main characters at the end, they're still dripping with crosses. They've formed this kind of new family where there's the mother who's 18, she just had a baby, Mary who hasn't conceived immaculately, part of the overt criticism of Christianity there, and her boyfriend who's the pastor's son, and the pastor who's been having an affair with the main character's own mum, and the father of the baby who's gay and has his boyfriend there, and they're all kind of gathered round, and they've got friends as well, so it's friends and family.
Their Jewish friends and her crippled boyfriend.
The motif is we'll have a get back to basics of Christianity thing, and the basics are, of course, a handful of choice bits from a very particular interpretation of some bits of the Gospels in which Jesus is just basically a hippie. This seems to be, the more I think about it, smuggling underneath what looks like all these big overt criticisms of Christianity, it seems to be trying to slip a gateway version, an extremely light, kind of Quaker level light version of Christianity.
It's one built on tolerance and acceptance.
Which you can get from the Gospels if you ignore 95% of them, and that's what...
If you cut the chaff off.
That's what sacred...
Cut the violent bits out.
Actually, cut everything except the chaff off.
Love my neighbour and God is love and so on.
Yeah, it keeps coming to me more and more that the way that you can base any ideology in a sacred text, you can say, oh, this is actually mandated by this text, is you can just read it with a kind of buffet mentality, which is to go, I already hold this set of values, that verse doesn't agree with it, that verse doesn't agree with it, so discard, disregard. Oh, that verse, if I squint at it, could be said to agree with it, so I'll come up with how you're supposed to squint and put that in the yes pile. No. Or there's one that does actually agree with it quite overtly. Okay, that goes in the yes pile. And you can do that with anything. As long as the sacred text is long enough, as long as it has a few thousand verses in it, as long as you're only ever quoting about 8 words at a time, you can make it say absolutely anything that you want to, particularly when most of it's written in poetry. That means that it can bear lots of metaphorical interpretations. This is the year of the Passion of the Christ, and this is conciliatory, what seems like irreligious filmmaking. It's conciliatory in that it's ultimately just going, oh, I'm sure that all this Christianity stuff is just fine. I'm sure that the people saying that you can pray the gay away, I'm sure that the people saying that homosexuality is a sin, that they've just got it all wrong. And Mary, our main character, does, in the climactic scene, rail against Pastor Skip when he says that homosexuality is a sin. She does rail against him, saying that it's his particular interpretation of that verse, which is what he's adhering to there, not the actual true religion.
I think what's interesting with Mary, she gets pregnant in quite an innocent way, doesn't she?
Yes.
And it's because her boyfriend, Dean, during a summer, admits to her that he thinks he's gay. She has a bit of a chat with Mandy Moore's character, Hilary Faye, on a gun range. This is the scary thing. On a firing range, on a gun range, where Hilary Faye's talking about, well, you know, she doesn't want to get raped or anything, so she's shooting the
human-shaped target.
Yeah, she's shooting the target in a nut area, and she's saying, you know, I need to be protected in case I get raped. You know, they're talking about that sort of thing, and Mary's trying to work through what can she do about Dean, what can she do to try to help him. She's a very chaste person, but I think it's Hilary Faye, isn't it, who says something quite flippant about, well, you can pray to Jesus to, almost give you your virginity back, so it's not a physical thing, but it's a spiritual thing, because if you've done it for him, because they're having this discussion about rape and about when it might be a good idea to have sex and that sort of stuff, so can Jesus grant you back your spiritual virginity? And so Mary then goes off thinking, well, I can do a deal with Jesus, because if I do this to help Dean, to turn him, to make him realise he's straight by having sex with him, then I'll be doing it for Jesus, right? Just to save her boyfriend from damnation, and she'll just spiritually get her virginity back. So that's what she thinks she's done. So it's actually Hilary Faye's fault in a way. And that's never brought up again. She doesn't rat her out on that ever again. She just says, I did it because I thought Jesus told me to do it, which is used as an excuse throughout the film for various things.
That's one of those early stage, quite overt criticisms of religion, because it goes, this thing tells you that there are no consequences of your actions. This thing encourages people to live consequence-free.
Yeah.
And living in that way leads to actual negative consequences. Even though the promise of you'll get your virginity back is couched by Hilary Faye in, you don't get your actual virginity back. You don't get your physical virginity back. There's nothing anatomical that changes as a result of Jesus giving you your virginity back. He'll just give you back your spiritual virginity. And so it's just the way that it's couched is already an admission of ineffectiveness to Jesus' presence.
Yeah.
Even that element is taken back a little bit at the end, because Jesus does make his presence felt right at the climax. When Hilary Faye drives her van sideways into the big Jesus statue and his head falls off.
Yeah, nearly crushes her.
Yeah, and she goes, Jesus Christ! And there's a lot of swearing in this one. Specifically blasphemous swearing, victimless crime. He does intervene. He metaphorically intervenes. So right at that climax, there's lots of putting back into place all these bits of Christianity that have overtly, at least in previous scenes, been thrown out the window. I'm just looking back at the dialogue for this climactic scene where Mary's shouting at Pastor Skip about how, no, he's wrong about homosexuality. And she refers to some stupid idea of what you think God wants, as if he's just invented the interpretation, which says that, Leviticus chapters 18 verse 22 and 20 verse 13, as if they just don't exist, as if he's imagined them. So it's saying, no, it can't possibly say in your book what it actually says in your book. And that's a huge favour to Christianity. And it may be that Brian Dannelly has zero religious beliefs whatsoever, but even so, he's made a film which essentially goes, I'm sure your religion is fine. I'm sure it couldn't possibly say in the special book what it actually says in your special book.
I'm really fascinated by the idea that this was produced by Michael Stipe of REM, and I don't know very much about Michael Stipe's personal life. I'm not really interested in celebrity personal lives. I think they should be personal lives, unless they've done things that the rest of us really ought to know about for safety reasons. I don't know if he's religious or not. I mean, I suppose the obvious one to turn to there is losing my religion. It'll be interesting to know what his involvement, what his motivation was. He seems to have been involved a little bit in the music as well. He and Mandy Moore have done a cover of the Beach Boys' God Only Knows for the closing credits of the film.
Michael Stipe comes from a line of Methodist ministers.
Oh, okay.
But then that doesn't mean he is still even...
Because you don't know if he's an ex-Christian and if he's had a hard time because of his sexuality or anything. there's something probably to look into there if anybody's interested. Just the production side of this film, and the sort of music stars that are involved.
Yeah.
And the music, as you say, that it's underpinned with, is very much underpinned with Christian rock.
And, points for me. The school doesn't overtly state it. It's called American
Eagle.
American Eagle.
So it is a religious school that they're at. It's an overtly Christian school, but it's not in the name, is that right?
Yeah, it's American Eagle, yeah, you got it right. American Eagle, the school, it doesn't state its denomination. As we were watching it, I thought, okay, they're doing speaking in tongues, they're doing an altar call, they're doing music on stage, and then when they started praying together, they pray like that.
Yeah, their hands raised.
Yeah.
Audio as well.
Sometimes one, yeah. Sometimes one, usually two.
Yeah, but
and
they're doing that sort of raising up to God thing.
And I went, Baptist.
Yeah.
And, Wikipedia entry for the film, director and co-writer Brian Dannelly based much of the film on things he had experienced and witnessed while attending a Baptist Christian high school.
Oh, wow.
Self 5. Because I am great. Yeah,
I don't think it was a difficult guess, though, that they'd be Baptist, to be fair.
Well, it's
if
the
you know
largest,
anything about...
It's the largest Protestant denomination in the United States. It's a safe bet.
It's a safe bet, and also they're singy, happy, clappy, they're into Christian rock.
Yeah.
Having been to a Baptist Sunday school and also went to a Methodist church, I can really see the differences.
We looked into some of the people who are in this, and you and I both, while watching it, thought that Eva Amuri, who plays Cassandra, the one
she's class.
ethnically Jewish person at the school, who everyone's trying to get to complete. She's great. There's this idea common in the States that a Christian is a completed Jew. And so that everyone who is Jewish just hasn't yet realised that the Messiah did turn up. The idea goes that every Jew has just made a mistake about the Messiah. And therefore, if they convert to Christianity, they've just completed. Anyway, so she's the one ethnically Jewish girl at the school, and it seems that she's basically an atheist.
Yeah.
And she bonds with fellow atheists.
Non-believer or unbeliever, as far as we know.
She bonds with Roland, the brother of the main...
Yeah, so he's the disabled brother of Hilary Faye.
And he's played by Macaulay Culkin very well.
But this is interesting, because I think way ages ago we did a podcast about the miseducation of Cameron Post, and there is a non-disabled actor playing a disabled character in that film as well. This comes up again with Macaulay Culkin. I mean, it's 2004. I don't know if it gets a pass because it's before the woke times. I don't know. But it's just something to point out. I'm not really rallying criticism or making a comment. I'm just pointing it out that he's playing this wheelchair-bound character.
And playing him well.
I thought he's great. I really enjoyed his performance. It's really nice to see him because I haven't really seen any of his adult roles. And he's quite a young adult here. He's only in his early 20s, I think.
Yeah, Macaulay Culkin, born in 1980.
Okay, so about 23, 24 when this was filmed.
Yeah.
Oh yes, and he's held back a year, so he's a year behind, so that's why he's in the same year as his younger sister.
Yes.
So he's actually about 19.
Bit of a crowbar method
of
getting Macaulay in.
Because he's very slightly older than the other actors, it seems. So back to our many segues.
Eva Amuri, you and I, during this film, kept thinking independently, why does she look so familiar?
She looks really class.
Why, Dr. Blair, does she look so familiar?
Well, because you looked it up and she's Susan Sarandon's daughter. That's so exciting.
Yeah, there was a lot of me going, is it the mouth? Like doing that thing where, you cover a bit of someone's face like that and you go, what part is it that looks like something that's really familiar? So it was everything.
Her eyes are really distinctive, and she had them in black eyeliner all the way around as well. So it was like, I'm the bad girl, I'm the rebel girl, smoking all the time, and a beaten up purple car.
Wearing a shorter skirt than the other girl.
Yeah, rolled up shirt sleeves.
Yeah,
the short sleeves that are rolled up, the big boots.
She, Eva Amuri, the actress playing Cassandra, went to a Quaker middle school. A Quaker is essentially 1 foot out the door. Yeah, because flavour of Christianity.
You don't know if that school is non-theist or theist as well, because you have non-theist Quakers.
Yes, and so just one cast member's beliefs there seem to indicate what the ballpark beliefs of the people involved in writing, directing, acting in this film are, which is, well, I'm sure that this is true in some sense, but clearly we have to throw most of it out. And that one bit where Mary, the main character, having decided that she just doesn't do Christianity anymore, anymore, decides, well, I have to now pick a new religion, picks crystal healing.
Because she's trying not to be pregnant and then not having an abortion way.
Yeah. Let's put a bookmark in the not having an abortion part of this film.
There.
Because the crystal healing thing is just overtly shown to be nonsense. You know, she drops the crystal she's trying to use to make herself not be pregnant. And so Christianity quickly gets resurrected as, pun intended, it quickly gets resurrected as the default position, as something that's the less ridiculous of the positions, because at least in Christianity you're trying to have a relationship with a person, whereas she's trying to have a relationship with crystals when she tries alternatives. And you know, that's one way you can resurrect something that seems nonsense, is you can go, well, here's these 4 other things that are the only alternatives, and they're more nonsense. So you've got to pick the least nonsense of the only 5 alternatives, so pick the nonsense. Yes, right. Films in which nobody even discusses having an abortion. That, as a film that was supposedly really critical of ideologies about sex and gender, still not even mentioning the possibility of having an abortion.
Planned Parenthood was visibly there.
Yeah.
At least she goes to a clinic. I mean, I think she just gets up to confirm her pregnancy. At least they're actually a real thing.
And there was that one moment when Roland and Cassandra, they're sitting together at a cafe or something, and they see across the street her come out of Planned Parenthood. Cassandra says something like, well, there's only one reason why she could have gone there, and Roland goes, what, you mean pipe bomb?
Yeah, and it was really funny. It was delivered so sharply and quickly that it was really laugh out loud funny.
And having a sympathetic character articulate that that's a credible fear.
Well, that shows you them all protesting outside the clinic, hassling a young woman who then changes her mind. They've got all those posters of, you know, it's a life too, and you know, those really incendiary posters, of the fetus, really exaggerated stuff like that to guilt people into turning back. You know, them all haranguing and whipping when they get somebody to change her mind. There's just something really implicit there, but it doesn't deal with the possibility that she could get it all to go away by having an abortion, or at least even talking through. You know, she goes to the clinic, but you don't see anything inside the clinic. So you've got all these posters: save the unborn, Jesus loves children, Jesus loves him too, you know, and it's really emotionally charged.
Mummy loved me.
It's hurtful. It's really damaging. And these protests going on outside abortion and family planning clinics are really, really harmful.
This film sits in a subgenre of specifically teen pregnancy films. Yeah. Not films about becoming a mother.
Juno must have been around this time as well.
Yeah.
Maybe a bit later than this, but roughly-ish this time.
Juno.
I think a bit later than this, maybe 2006 or 7 or something.
It was a late noughties set of films. Juno was a breakaway hit, and the films like Knocked Up came afterwards. 2007
right, yeah.
was Juno. Because at least in Juno does go and try to go to an abortion clinic.
Yeah.
And then she changes her mind while she's there. So that's rare, right? The norm is that in the majority of films, characters, no matter how critical they are of people's views about being pregnant, no matter how critical they are of ideologies of any kind, they never even mention thinking about getting an abortion. With Mary here, our non-immaculately conceiving Mary, it's just now a brute fact of her life. She finds out that she's pregnant, and then she puts a black mark around a certain day in her diary, which is now her due date, and that's it. So even this film, which goes, we're going to criticise this, and this commonly held attitude amongst these Christian kids and their teachers, even this film will not even mention the possibility of our main character having an abortion. Mentions abortion and has them protesting against it, and so when they're in their kind of early evil stage, and so implicitly goes, there's something wrong here, but then goes, the thing that's wrong is not preventing women from having abortions, it's something like just being shouty at them. This film is becoming more and more apparent as being really pro-Christian, just in such a way as to appear to be overtly anti-Christian. So I'm adding this to my module as a film that I suggest students get their teeth into, because it's great to discuss the issue of whether a film that seems to take one stance might actually be taking the opposite one.
Just to think a bit about the teen pick, and I want to try and come to race at some point, because we're on a freeze frame of the Christian Jewels. So this band name for Hilary, Faye, Mary, and what's the other wee girl's name? I have forgotten everybody's name. I've forgotten everybody's name except the name of the school in this thing.
Veronica.
Veronica.
Her name is Elizabeth Ty, the actor.
Okay,
actress.
she's quite interesting because she's this third wheel that they've got into their little band, their little girl band,
Yeah.
fronted by Mandy Moore's character. So, of course, she's a good win because she's quite a popular pop singer at this time, right? It's not really my world, but I vaguely know who this is. And so Veronica, is that right?
Yeah.
Quite early on in the film, it shows you them accepting her and her being one of them. She is now part of this little band that they have called the Christian Jewels. You get a tiny bit of backstory. She's a fairly superficial character. She comes into her own a tiny bit towards the end of the film. There's just something about that she's been adopted from Vietnam.
By parents who were there doing
Missionary work. And who were African American. It looked like, because no person who isn't white, apart from this one person of Vietnamese origin, everybody else is just background and with no speaking roles. She's the one person who isn't a white person who has some lines, and she doesn't have very many lines.
There is one moment. He might not be theologically Sikh, but he's ethnically North Indian, where he appears at the prom, and he's got a little top knot thing.
Oh, I didn't even see that.
His hair all tied up, and he is literally just doing this.
So they've got a
from behind another
character
character who's just going.
We swear we're racially diverse.
And there's a couple of African American kids at this Baptist school
in the background sometimes, but that's it. There's nobody else with lines.
Yeah, so this is a white film.
Very white world. It's very Aryan.
But then, this is based on Brian Dannelly's childhood experiences, which may have been at a very white school. And this is set near Baltimore, but it was filmed in Vancouver.
Well, yeah.
As is the norm with indie American films.
That's about right.
It's actually Canadian.
So even the music in there, and just getting somebody like Mandy Moore. I keep changing how I pronounce her name because my mum's maiden name is Moore, but most people who would say Mandy Moore say Mandy Moore, so I'm very confused about how to say her name now.
Mandy Moore?
Mandy Moore.
Yeah, that's what you're saying.
Is it? Okay, that's fine then.
But if it's M-I-U-R, it's Muir, right?
Muir, yeah, but that's a derivative. They're all different spellings of the same name.
No,
but it's true.
Yeah, I believe you.
From when people didn't really have literacy. That's why you have M-O-R-E, M-O-O-R-E, M-U-I-R. They're all the same name.
Yeah, Mandy Moore.
Mandy Moore.
You're saying more?
Moore.
Are we going to have a malfunction?
I'm just explaining why I might sound different every time I say her name. But yeah, she was one of those pop starlets, but I think probably quite a clean one, around the same time-ish as Britney Spears. I want to say.
Yeah.
I don't know a huge amount about her because I was more of a goth, grunge, punk-ish area person, alternative person. What?
We cliqued in spite of not having been to American high schools. We still cliqued, didn't we? These cliques are not specific to American teen movies.
No, but I think they're just very pronounced in these teen movies because you have that clique, you have the little girl group, and they've got their token Asian person who's basically just another white girl. When Mary transgresses and ends up leaving the fold because she's become a black sheep type person, she's very quickly replaced by a character who is portrayed quite regularly early on as a really annoying person, but she clearly wants to be one of them. She wants to be their friend. She wants to hang out with them all the time. She wants to be one of them.
She's perfectly cast as having...
She's great, yeah. She was very familiar to me as well. Oh, Tia, is that it? Who wants the tiara? That's how we can remember her. Yeah, so Tia, who's another blonde girl. There's a really interesting class divide that is not really explicitly gone into, but implicitly through this character of Tia.
Yeah.
Because Hilary Faye and Roland seem to have come from a very moneyed family. And Hilary Faye, especially between the two of them, gets so much of what she wants. Although she's quite sore that she's had to get this van type car so that she can cart around her wheelchair using brother she makes him pretty dependent on her to do that, and she gets that car instead of the really expensive saloon type car that she really actually wants.
She goes and gets a boutique makeover
Yeah.
before the prom. She hired a limo to take her to the prom. She's always wearing really blingy clothes.
Makeup.
Yeah.
A lot of makeup all
Yes.
the time, quite orangey skin. Tia, on the other hand, it's pointed out, you discover her, she unfolds quite subtly, where she's working several jobs, and there's a throwaway, it seems throwaway, but it's actually, there's a lot of information there where we find out that she's saving up for a car of her own. So she doesn't have parents who will just give her a car, buy a car for her.
Yeah.
She has to work really hard and do it herself. So she's somebody who's probably from a working class family and is trying to make good and improve her social mobility, and she covets the tiara.
Yes. And she gets it.
Gets it.
It's not just that she envies it, she wants something and gets it later.
Something symbolic about that. It's, you know, she's working really hard. She's working up the ranks. So socially, she's working up the ranks in many ways in terms of her social class, but in terms of her clique standing as well, the social class structure within the school.
I hadn't thought about that, actually, yeah. There's an unseating of the aristocracy that goes on.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. It's been such a long time, but please see this if you ever get a chance. But I'm a Cheerleader does this sort of thing as well, where it's the cliques, it's you, the cheerleaders, the footballers, you've got the alternative kids, but they're the ones who are supposed to be gay. But I'm a cheerleader, I'm supposed to have a boyfriend, I'm not supposed to be gay. It has that whole backdrop of that. Seems really stereotypical, but it seems to be a stereotype that's grounded in reality from anyone I know who's from the United States, where they've had that kind of high school experience where it is people just group off and they have an identity that belongs to a group of kids.
And you even give it a team name. The Christian Jewels, they're a band, but it's also...
It's like Heathers.
It's a clique name.
And you want to be part of it. How we meet Hilary Faye in the beginning is she's giving the other girls the pin badges that she's had made that say Christian Jewel. It's one of the first acts that she does is to brand them. So it fits very much in that team pick.
In fact, there's quite a lot of symbolic moments in this film. Like when Mary first puts on her little pin.
It stabs her.
Yeah, her Christian Jewel pin.
It hurts her.
Yeah, you can hear the pricking.
It does
So
harm.
yeah, there's
And it's right,
she has a
right
passion
on the heart
moment.
as well. It's
Yeah.
right over her heart on her chest.
It both symbolically goes,
Yeah.
Christianity's harmful to her, and also goes, isn't she Christ-like?
She suffers.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
she's swapped out so easily. So the badge is just a brand that
Yeah.
gets pinned on whoever
And-
gets to earn a place.
And Hilary Faye just takes it off remarkably quickly for one of those quite intricate little pin badges. When Mary really quite inarticulately criticises something she says at a prayer meeting,
Yeah.
it suddenly escalates into, that's it, you're out of this.
Yeah. She betrays their friendship. And that's a very early indicator that she's going to be somebody who's untrustworthy and will be out for herself more than anybody else, but in the name of Jesus. Because Mary confides in her friend, who she thinks is her friend, about Dean being gay, her boyfriend being gay. Gets her to swear secrecy, to be discreet about this, because he wants to try and fix it. You know, he wants to try the conversion therapy. He believes the pamphlets that he's going to be cured, and he wants to try. But then Hilary Faye decides to hold this very publicly advertised prayer meeting to get the faggotry out of him. I'm quoting there. It's not a word I would use.
Yeah, there's a specific word. It's one of the film's well over 200 keywords on the Internet Movies Database. And I ought to point out that the Internet Movies Database is populated entirely, 242 keywords, populated entirely by content put in there by people who are obsessed with seeing things simulated in films. So, yeah, it's got keywords like mother-daughter relationship, school, pastor, virginity, but it also has keywords like bare-chested male, close-up of eyes, and the word that they use is...
De-gayification.
Yeah, and in fact, if you look up the other film that has that as a keyword on IMDb,
Oh, right.
Easy A. in
I
which
haven't seen it.
the protagonist, played by Emma Stone, doesn't have sex with anyone, but she pretends that she has.
Oh, right, yes.
For money.
Okay.
She tells people that she has. There's two main male characters at the school where she goes to who want people to think that they're not gay, and so they can go, well, this girl and I had sex, and look, she's telling people we had sex, so therefore I can't possibly be gay because I had sex with someone. So it's reputational de-gayification rather than actual de-gayification. Although in Saved! It's not even de-gayification. The film seems to say, oh, gay conversion therapy doesn't even exist. These places are just places where gay Christians can just get to know each other.
Just meet each other.
It's gay mingle.
Find their life partners.
Gay Christian mingle. Alright, and one last thing which we have learned today is that Jenna Malone, who plays Mary, the main character, and you have something in common.
We're born on the same day. That's so
There you go.
exciting.
She was born on the other side of the Atlantic, but
Yeah.
no, not her fault.
That counts. What else has she been in? I don't really know much about her.
Oh, right, yes. She, I think, was in some of the Hunger Games. Oh, there's
Oh, right.
an entire page just devoted to her credits.
Oh, wow. She's done loads of stuff.
She was Lydia Bennett in the 2005 Keira Knightley Pride and Prejudice.
Haven't seen it.
She was in 3 of the 4 Hunger Games films.
Haven't seen them.
She was in Batman vs Superman: Dawn of
Haven't
Justice.
seen it. This is
Um,
terrible.
Sucker Punch.
Haven't seen it.
She was Cheery Lab Tech in The Soloist.
No.
For Ellen.
No. Have you seen these?
I've seen some of them.
Have you?
She's been in many things.
Yeah,
That's-
she's
that's
been
what
in
it-
loads. Just none of them
Contact.
I haven't seen.
Ooh, she was in
You
Contact.
haven't even seen Contact. It's not terrible.
Leave.
Oh,
I
I
sling you
know,
out
it's
of
terrible. It's
my
just
land.
one of those films the opportunity has never arisen.
The Neon Demon.
Oh no, is that your one? What do you call him?
Refn.
That one. The Drive guy.
Yes.
You haven't seen Drive.
I've seen clips from Drive.
That's not the same. It's not the same.
Yeah. Okay. It's our next film for.
Is it?
for
Don't make promises. Don't make promises.
Whatever your
There's
podcast
too
is called
many
at that point.
unkept promises for this podcast already. We still haven't done Paddington 2. We still haven't done too many that have been requested.
It's not like you have the kind of patrons who will moan at you if.
No, that's true.
If you don't do the things that we promised that we're going to do.
And some of these were things that people who don't even give me money asked for. We haven't done Scream. We were asked to do Scream. We haven't done it.
I haven't seen it. Let's do Scream. Let's do
You
it now.
haven't
Come on.
seen Scream? What's wrong with you?
Oh no! What this is?
I saw Scream when I was 13.
It would seem that this has degenerated into a
Sorry.
game of reverse humiliation,
Sorry.
otherwise known as humiliation.
Do you have any other observations on this?
I just want to observe that, at least according to the little summary of critical responses on the Wikipedia page for Saved! Roger Ebert and I have noticed the film's covert politics
Right.
exactly in lockstep with each other.
Interesting.
Although I, of course, am able to see that its overt political position is still a bit of a fiction, whereas he thinks it is, of course, an accurate account of the Jesus of the Bible. Because he's getting reinvented as quite the hippie these days.
Jesus?
Is your man Jesus,
Right.
not Roger Ebert.
No, this would have been back when Roger Ebert himself was writing everything attributed to Roger Ebert rather than RogerEbert.com, as is still running today.
I gather, yes. Oh, and we also watched One of Us.
Oh, last night. That
night.
was so good. It's a really good documentary if you get a chance to see it. It's on Netflix.
Heidi Ewing and
Rachel Grady.
who also directed Jesus Camp, and it's just brutally honest.
Really powerful, really
Yeah.
beautifully, powerfully made, I thought. About
Yeah.
people who are from the Hasidic Jew community in New York City and are at various stages of trying to leave or at least not be as orthodox anymore. Just trying to, I suppose, do something like this, be just less fundamentalist about it.
Yeah. And it was really clear that these people, in some cases, have no religious beliefs anymore, but in all cases are still culturally Jewish.
Yeah,
In all
very
cases,
much, yeah.
do like the music, the rituals, the food. As a cultural thing, it's still part of what they do, and yet they're trying to do it having been evicted from the Hasidic New York community. Now, I suppose the reason why we didn't do a recording of a discussion about that is because that recording would have just been of us sitting, clutching our knees to our chests,
I
rocking.
know, especially
going,
the wee young fella, I just wanted to cuddle him. character, love him. Because these are people who had attempted to take their own lives. There was a woman who was getting her 7 children torn away from her, and this is a woman who was only 32 years old and had 7 children because she'd been married off at 18 and then forced to have sex with an abusive husband.
And all 3 of them were being told by the people who they really cared about that the problem was with them.
Yeah.
It was, oh, you don't want to be part of this group anymore, there must be something wrong with you. They were all told that in various different ways, in some cases really aggressively. So we'll not discuss that one, other than to go watch it and then have a lie down.
It is really well made, it's very sensitively made. There's no overt massive comments. Really, it's just these individuals are damaged, they need help. The young guy, especially Ari, he's about 17 when they start filming, and then he's 19 by the end of it. They seem to have been filming over a 2 to 3 year period, and he seems just such a lovely, sweet boy. He just opens up more and more, and he's trying to come to terms with the fact that he was raped as a child by one of the instructors, so a rabbi at a camp.
Yeah.
He gets either denial or, well, you must have deserved it type lines, you know, and no one's ever held to account for things like that. You know, there are these things that maybe don't overtly criticise a specific religion or specific people in a religious practice, but they're ones that you watch and you make your own mind up and you see, well, on a human level, why are we tolerating these abuses? Why are we allowing them to be masked over? It feels quite frustrating that we can't engage with this because at risk of offending people. Well, I find it really offensive that people rape children and abuse women. I find that really bloody offensive.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Alright, yeah, thank you very much.
Let's do this again.
I'm glad we watched that actually.
It was an impulse watch.
It was, but it was.
Wow.
I enjoyed it more than I thought I was going to.
The craziness we indulge in the days of the lockdown.
It's wild in this house. Thanks, bye. You've been listening to Audiovisual Cultures with me, Paula Blair, and Andrew Shail. This episode was recorded and edited by Paula Blair, and the music is Common Ground by Airtone, used under a 3.0 non-commercial Creative Commons license. Episodes release every other Wednesday, with early releases when available to Patreon members. I'm also very grateful for donations to liberapay.com/PEA Blair to support my writing as well as making the podcast. Be part of the conversation with AV Cultures on Facebook and Twitter, and AV Cultures Pod on Instagram. Wash your hands, stay home if you can, and be excellent to yourselves and each other. Thanks so much for listening. Catch you next time.